Hello everyone and welcome to this video where today I'm going to be filming my 20-week pregnancy update. So as always, if you see me looking down, I have just got my notebook in front of me as I've taken down lots of information throughout the week. In this video I'm going to talk through all of the symptoms that I've been experiencing this week, along with my 20-week scan and consultant appointment. So starting off with some symptoms that have stayed the same for me this week, I'm still getting lots of stretching down the sides of my stomach. That's just continued each week now. I still have been getting up in the night to go for a wee. This was usually happening once a night, but that started to become twice a night at the moment. So I don't know if that's going to be my new regular thing to be getting up twice a night, but I guess it will prepare me for when I have a newborn baby. I have also been getting a few headaches this week. They're not quite the long-lasting headaches that I have gotten previous weeks where they were lasting 2 or 3 days for me. But there's just been a few occasions this week where I've had a headache. Not really strong ones, just kind of like low-level ones. I have also felt like I'm beginning to get a bit more tired after moving about recently. So if I've been like a bit more active in the day, by the evening I'm just ready for a long sit down and just have a little bit of a rest. One good thing that I've seemed to have noticed this week is that when I was lying down in the evenings, I was getting quite a lot of really low down back pain. It felt like it was just like my body finally relaxing and then I would get the pain, but I don't seem to have actually had that this week, so that's really good. I did also mention last week that my belly button was kind of starting to pop out, and it had been doing so for the last few weeks, but I think it is actually fully out now this week. You can really see it sticking through clothes and actually feel it as well. I did mention I have got my belly button piercing, so obviously that also sticks out, but yeah, I think the belly button is fully popped now. Excitingly, I did actually get to see the baby kick on the outside for the first time this week. It looked like it was quite down. I don't know whether it was a kick or a hand, but it looked like just around the belly button kind of area, just below it. But it was like a really sudden jolt, and I just happened to see it as well as I feel it, obviously, which was exciting. This week as well, my partner did also manage to feel like a little kick or like hit with the arm for the first time, which was lovely. He did only feel it very, very faintly, but for me it felt like it was quite strong, so I'm sure it won't be long until he can start to feel that even more on the outside. So I'll go on now to talk through what happened at my 20-week scan appointment. So the scan in total lasted around 20 to 30 minutes, I would say, and during that time they did lots of checks around the baby. In this scan they checked the heart and all the 4 chambers. They checked the cord. I think it was a 3-valve cord they were looking for, which was all looking good, which is amazing. They also was obviously able to measure the baby, and the baby's measuring exactly where it should be for right now, which is good. They did mention that at my 12-week scan the baby was measuring quite big. I didn't know that at the time, but it was on the 96th centile, so a bit on the larger side, but that seems to have evened out now, so that's all good. So they did actually also talk about the placenta. So they mentioned that I do have an anterior placenta, so I've got it kind of at the front, which I know you might not feel movements as strong or as early on when you have that, as this kind of creates a bit of a wall between the outside of your stomach and the baby. I think I did also have that when I had my daughter as well, and yeah, I didn't feel movements all the time when I had her, I think because the placenta did just block so much from the front of my stomach. They also checked that the placenta is not too low lying, which it's not, so that is amazing also. Whilst I was in there, they did actually ask if we already knew the gender and if we would like to find out. So we were actually having a party on the weekend, so we were inviting family over where we were going to have a gender reveal party. Just have a few bits of food and family over, which would be lovely. So our plan was to get the person who was scanning us to write it on a piece of paper so we could take it to the shop and have a balloon filled with either confetti, and that we would find out with our family. However, they did say to us that it was against hospital policy to write it down. At our hospital in particular, they don't let you take any photos or videos inside there either. So it kind of didn't leave us with many options. It was either we don't find out what we're having at all, or we booked a private scan. But obviously, with everyone coming over on the weekend, we wanted to know. And I was also open to the idea of the fact that they could say that to us as well. So we decided to find out on the day what we were having. There was a point in the scan where the baby was wriggling around, it was flipping over and turning over, and the lady who was scanning me was kind of struggling a little bit to get the right angles to be able to check what she needed to. So she did get me to put my feet up on the bed, lift my back up, and then kind of move my hips like this side to side. So I did that, and that seemed to work and get the baby moving again. She did also check as well, because at the scan the baby was head down with feet up, but obviously where the baby is so small this can change around so much, but that was where the baby was sat at the moment, which makes sense because I often feel kicks kind of like higher up on my right side, so that would make sense as to where the baby's feet are. The baby did also have both of its hands up by its face. It was like this in the scans, which is really sweet because it was doing that at the 12-week scan as well. So it obviously likes to be hidden and hiding quite a lot. When I came out of the scan, they did catch me and just asked if I wanted any vaccines. I had personally already had my flu vaccine, and I know that you're able to get your whooping cough vaccine from 20 weeks pregnant. So I asked if that was something that they would be able to do, and they said yes, so they did that right away. I obviously had that done with my daughter as well. It tends to last 10 years, they said, but obviously it was 10 years since my last pregnancy anyway, so I wasn't covered anymore. So with the vaccine, it did leave me with a very achy arm for around 3 days after. I'm not really too bothered by them normally, but my arm was particularly achy and it was very difficult to sleep with, so I suggest you don't have it done on the side that you tend to sleep on. She did also talk to me about the RSV vaccine, so you're able to have that done once you are 28 weeks pregnant. So she had suggested that we got that booked in, so that is what I did, and I've booked that for when I go for my 28-week scan. I'm also going to go and have the vaccine for RSV at the same time. So following on from the scan, I always have a consultant appointment afterwards. This is due to medication that I'm taking. I take beta blockers, and also now I have gestational diabetes as well. I would have to see the consultant anyway because of that. So I did have a different consultant this time than I had last time, but they were really knowledgeable this time, and yeah, it was a really useful appointment to me. They talked through gestational diabetes, what that means for your pregnancy and delivery as well. They mentioned that they would usually induce you at 2 or 3 weeks earlier than your due date if you have gestational diabetes, as they don't like the baby to grow too big, as this can lead to complications during birth. But I obviously still have 3 more growth scans throughout my pregnancy to monitor the baby's size throughout, just to check that it's not growing too big or too small. With the being induced 2 to 3 weeks early, I personally don't have too much knowledge on inductions. I didn't have to get induced with my daughter, I just went into labour naturally, so that's something I'm going to have to look into in a lot more detail in the coming weeks. They did say that my history of my previous birth goes in my favour, as I did have my daughter naturally around 2 weeks early than my due date was, so that's really good. However, he did say that if you have more than 10 years between pregnancies, which I do, your body can then begin to behave like it's a new pregnancy again. So what you experienced the first time might not be the case the second time. He obviously talked about the risks of having a bigger baby if you have gestational diabetes. However, because of the beta blockers that I take, I'm also at risk of having a smaller baby. So he said it's kind of pulling from both ends of the spectrum there, and the baby could kind of grow either way. It could grow smaller or it could go bigger, but obviously I do have my growth scans to monitor that throughout. They said because of this it could actually just even out and I just have a normal sized baby. Obviously that is the best case scenario, but we'll just have to see how everything goes during the next scans. interestingly, he did actually mention that taking beta blockers through pregnancy sometimes has a correlation with having gestational diabetes, which is not something that I had heard of before. I know that beta blockers can affect the baby's sugar levels once it's born, but I wasn't aware that during pregnancy that could be the case. So that's quite interesting to remember. He did also talk to me about some of the risks during delivery and labour, such as shoulder dystocia. So I am at much higher risk of having that when I have the baby. That is due to the baby possibly being bigger than a normal baby. This is where the shoulders can become stuck when you're delivering, which in turn can distress the baby. You can end up ripping as well, or you can just end up needing an emergency C-section. And obviously none of those are ideal outcomes. You would not hope to have any of that happen, but it's good that they prepare you with the information just so you know that that is a possibility. So because of that and some other risks that could occur during labour, they did obviously, as I said, mention that I have a higher chance of having to have a C-section. He did also mention that I can choose to have an elective C-section at any point during my pregnancy. Personally, for me, I've not looked into anything about C-sections, induction. With my daughter, I had a completely natural labour, I didn't have any pain relief, and it was very smooth running, very straightforward. So over the coming weeks and months, I'm going to be doing like lots of research into that. As personally for me, I don't know how I feel about having a medicated birth or C-sections. I'm really not keen on the idea. However, obviously, if that is the safest option for me and the baby, that is what it has to be. But yeah, it's just obviously a lot of information to take in and a lot of research still needs doing around that. At that appointment with the consultant, he did also mention that he would get me booked in for a 25-week midwife appointment. As I've said previously, with your second pregnancy, you don't tend to have as many appointments. However, he has booked me in for an extra one just due to all the other risks and being high risk this pregnancy that I have. He said it's important to keep a close eye on your blood pressure as well during pregnancy, as this can lead to problems further along. And if you have gestational diabetes, you're also more likely to develop preeclampsia further along as well, which obviously is not ideal. So they like to keep an eye on you and monitor that throughout. So that was kind of all that was mentioned at the consultant appointment. So I thought I'd just give you a little update on the gestational diabetes this week as well. So most of my readings are in Target. However, I have had a few out of Target this week. I think this is due to it being nearly Christmas. We've had like buffet lunches at work and stuff. So I've been trying to keep it balanced, but obviously it is a different lunch than I would normally eat. So they've kind of just been more on target, but nothing too extreme. I did also have a new dinner one night this week. Someone else made it for me. And it's tricky trying to try new things because you don't know what's going to work and what isn't. But I'd had a dinner where I'd had stuffed peppers with some mince, some broccoli and a few potato wedges, but unfortunately this sent me way over. I thought it'd be a good balance with the veggies, but obviously that one didn't work for me, so that's not a dinner I'll be trying again. I have also just had a couple of readings that have been out and unexplained. I don't know whether this is following having a meal that's been out of Target or not, or just a coincidence. But I thought I'd just note that down, that there has been a few readings out this week. I think that's it for updates for 20 weeks. So I'll go ahead now and show you my bump at 20 weeks pregnant. So this is the bump update at 20 weeks and 6 days. Just about fitting in these trousers still. There you go. So that's everything for my 20-week pregnancy update. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again next week. Goodbye.